Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's dive straight into what's going on with the latest strike at the Kerch Strait Bridge, also widely known as the Crimea Bridge, and what it means for Vladimir Putin, Russia's ambitions, and the wider war in Ukraine. It's been reported that the Security Service of Ukraine (SBU) carried out an underwater explosive attack aimed at undermining Russia's key connective link to the occupied peninsula of Crimea. Why does this matter? Because the bridge isn't just a piece of infrastructure. It symbolizes Russian control over Crimea. It's a strategic logistic artery, and for Putin it is a trophy of his so-called return of Crimea to Russia. By striking it again, Ukraine is sending a message, and Russia is scrambling to begin with the background. The bridge was built after Russia's annexation of Crimea. It spans roughly 19 km across the Kerch Strait, linking mainland Russia to the Crimean Peninsula via both road and rail. From the outset, it carried not only civilian traffic, but also military and logistics flows critical for Russian forces operating in southern Ukraine and on the Crimean front. Simply put, it is a key artery for Moscow's war machine, as well as a potent symbol of its claim to Crimea. But the past few years show that it is also vulnerable. Previous attacks were carried out. For example, a truck bomb explosion damaged part of the road span, and seed drone struck one of its road spans, causing partial closure. So when Ukraine now claims another underwater explosive strike, it underscores an escalating campaign of pressure and sabotage aimed squarely at the bridge and at Russia's ability to feel secure what exactly happened. According to the SBU, they spent months covertly deploying mines or explosives on the underwater supports of the bridge. They claim major damage to the supports. Russia's own operators confirmed that traffic was suspended for several hours, but the Kremlin and federal agencies publicly maintained that no significant damage occurred and that operations resumed. So we have a contested narrative, Ukraine boasting of a big underwater hit, Russia downplaying it but acknowledging a brief disruption. From a tactical standpoint, the attack serves multiple purposes for Kiev. First, it targets an important logistics route for Russian forces, potentially disrupting resupply and mobility across Crimea and the southern theater. Second, it hits a symbol the bridge is associated with Putin's prestige and Russia's narrative of control over Crimea. As analysts point out, damaging or threatening that symbolism matters perhaps as much as the material damage. Third, it signals to domestic and international audiences that Ukraine retains initiative, can strike deep, and is not just on the defensive. The pairing of this bridge strike with other Ukrainian operations suggests a broader campaign of pressure. For Russia and Putin, the implications are significant, if less visible in the immediate hours. The bridge is meant to be inviolable. It was built despite international objections. It opened with fanfare, and it has been used by Putin as proof of Russia's permanence in Crimea. Any hit undermines that narrative. Analysts have argued that each strike chips away at the aura of invulnerability of Russian infrastructure, and by extension, the Kremlin's control. Moreover, Russia's need to invest more in defenses to respond to the attack, to divert resources to protect this corridor rather than forward operations, means an additional burden. Despite Russia claiming reduced military use of the bridge, its symbolic value alone keeps it a priority target. Beyond symbolism and logistics, there are broader war implications. The fact that Ukraine carried out an underwater mining operation raises questions about maritime and subsurface warfare in the Black Sea theater. Russia must now defend not just against surface attacks, but covert underwater incursions, which are harder to detect and defend. If Ukraine can demonstrate repeated success in this domain, Russian supply lines, staging areas, and occupied territory infrastructure may come under increasing strain. This raises the cost for Moscow of keeping control over Crimea and its onward campaigns. On the flip side, Russia will likely respond either by hardening defenses, installing more sensors, anti-drone nets, submarine detection systems, or by shifting logistics away from the bridge to alternate routes. Indeed, some open-source intelligence suggests that Russia has already reduced military cargo traffic over the bridge, possibly because of the threat it faces. That may reduce the immediate strategic value of the bridge for Russia's war effort, but it doesn't reduce the political weight of the bridge for Putin. Politically, for Putin, the strike represents a public relations blow. It allows Ukraine and its backers to say, even your great miracle bridge isn't safe. It gives internal opponents of Putin a talking point about Russian weaknesses. Internationally, it highlights that Ukraine remains capable of high-profile operations and thus continues to require and justify Western support and weapons. That in turn puts pressure on Moscow, which already faces sanctions, manpower shortages, logistics challenges, and now must defend more widely. Of course, the question remains how much real damage was done. Russia's official line is that the bridge remains operational, damage is minimal, traffic resumed. Kiev argues the deeper supports were hit, and the structure is in a state of emergency. The truth may lie somewhere between. Damage may be real, but not catastrophic yet, or Russia may be hiding vulnerabilities to avoid panic. Either way, the psychological impact is real. The fact of the strike is more important, perhaps, than exact structural failure. Looking ahead, what are the possible consequences and what should we watch for? Firstly, Russia may accelerate alternative logistics routes, more rail links, supply corridors that bypass the vulnerable bridge. If Russia de-emphasizes the bridge for cargo, it may reduce its strategic value and shift risks elsewhere. Secondly, Ukraine may seek to repeat or escalate attacks on such high-value symbols and logistics arteries, pushing Russia to divert resources away from offensive operations into defense. Thirdly, this episode may renew urgency in Western capitals to provide Ukraine with longer-range weapons, maritime drones, underwater systems, to exploit Russian vulnerabilities in the Black Sea space. Fourthly, if the bridge were to be significantly damaged or closed for long, Russia's hold on Crimea would be more tenuous, and the morale effect could inspire Kiev's forces and disrupt Russian local governance and supply networks. Finally, for Putin himself, continuing strikes against his ability infrastructure inch at the political narrative of strength. If domestic doubts grow, Kremlin may respond with more aggressive tactics, escalation, or crackdown at home. We should also keep in mind the human dimension. Infrastructure attacks risk civilian casualties, disruption of fuel, goods, movement, local economies in Crimea and southern Russia. Russia will likely emphasize any civilian harm as propaganda to justify retaliation. Ukraine must balance its military objectives with the legal and moral dimensions of targeting infrastructure. Russia, in turn, may attempt to portray any Ukrainian strike as terrorism or escalation to justify its own actions. In sum, this latest bridge strike is more than just a blast underwater. It is a strategic move in a war of attrition and symbolism. It highlights Ukraine's growing capability, Russia's exposed vulnerabilities, and the shifting dynamic around logistics, morale, and infrastructure in the war. For Putin, it poses a tough question: how to protect your symbols, keep your supply lines open, and maintain credibility when your touted miracle project is under attack. For Ukraine, it offers a moment of leverage, a message to Moscow, and possibly a shift in momentum. As we move forward, the key things to watch will be how Russia reacts in terms of security upgrades, how traffic and usage of the bridge change over time, whether Ukraine conducts follow-on strikes or expands to other infrastructure, how international arms supplies respond, and how Russia manages The narrative domestically and internationally. The war is evolving beyond just frontline engagements, key lines, terrain, symbols, and infrastructure matter too. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into war, tech, geopolitics, and how individual stories shape the bigger picture.